Welcome to Monk's Temple. Tonight, let us do something different. Let us not just listen, but feel. Let us not just hear words, but allow silence to speak. For centuries, the deepest truths have traveled not on the roar of lectures, but on the breath of stories, simple, quiet tales that bypass the busy mind and settle directly into the soul. This is a space where the noise of the world is invited to fade. A space where you can remember the stillness that has always been within you, beneath the worry, beneath the planning, beneath the endless doing. So, wherever you are, make yourself comfortable. Let your body settle. Feel the weight of yourself supported by the chair, the floor, the earth. Take a breath that is a little slower, a little deeper. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. And as you exhale, imagine you are releasing a story you've been carrying, a story of today's burdens. Let it go, just for now. You are safe here. You are welcome here. This is your time to journey inward. Let us begin. In a village tucked between two silent mountains, there was a gardener named Leo. Leo loved flowers more than anything. He desired a garden of such beauty it would make the sun pause in its arc to admire its colors. He studied every text, knew every soil type, every pruning technique. He watered at precise hours, measured sunlight with a notched stick, and whispered encouragement to each budding stem. But his garden remained stubbornly modest. Flowers bloomed, but without vibrancy. Leaves grew, but often tinged with yellow. Leo was perplexed. He worked harder, waking earlier, tending later. The garden, in response, seemed to shrink further into itself. One afternoon, an old monk from the mountain monastery passed by. He saw Leo, fretful and kneeling in the soil, gently scolding a rosebush for not opening fully. The monk smiled and sat on a nearby stone. "You love them very much," the monk observed. "With all my heart," Leo replied, frustration brimming in his eyes. "Yet they do not love me back." The monk nodded, looking not at the flowers, but at Leo's tense hands, at the worry etched on his brow. "May I visit your garden for 3 days?" he asked. "I will do nothing but sit." Confused but desperate, Leo agreed. The next morning, the monk arrived. He did not touch a tool. He did not water. He simply sat in a corner of the garden and closed his eyes. He sat through the morning sun, through the afternoon breeze. Leo watched, incredulous, from his window. Nothing. The second day, the monk returned. Again, he sat. This time, Leo noticed something strange. Birds, which usually avoided his bustling presence, began to land near the monk. A butterfly rested on his still shoulder. The garden itself seemed quieter, but not still. A different kind of energy hummed in the air. On the third day, Leo joined the monk in silence. He sat, trying to mimic his posture. At first, his mind raced. The eastern bed needs water. The aphids on the hollyhocks. Did I turn the compost? But as the hours passed, his thoughts began to slow. He heard the rustle of leaves not as a problem to diagnose, but as a song. He felt the sun's warmth not as a variable to measure, but as a blanket. He saw the flowers simply as they were, without his desire for them to be more. For the first time, he was not doing anything to the garden. He was simply being with it. That evening, the monk left without a word. The next week, Leo found himself spending less time managing and more time present. He still watered, he still weeded, but his anxiety was gone. His hands were softer, his movements less frantic. And a miracle, quiet and profound, unfolded. Colors deepened. Blooms exploded in abundance. The garden became a tapestry of life so vibrant it took Leo's breath away. He finally understood. His intense focus, his desire for control, his love that was really a form of grasping, it had been a shadow over the sun. The plants felt his anxiety as a weight. When he released his need for a specific outcome and simply offered peaceful presence, the garden felt safe to express its own inherent nature, its own boundless beauty. Zen teaches us that true growth, in gardens, in relationships, in our own spirits, often happens not in the spotlight of our frantic effort, but in the spaciousness of unattended, trusting presence. We think we must force, shape, and control life into beauty. But life's deepest beauty emerges on its own, when we finally step back and allow. If this quiet truth resonates with you, if you wish to cultivate more of this allowing presence in your own life, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It is a simple gesture, like planting a seed. We will continue to tend this space of stillness together. In a bustling city where everyone hurried with purpose, there lived an elderly woman named Elara in a small, top-floor apartment. She rarely left her home. To her neighbors, she was a mystery, a recluse. But every evening, she would sit by her window, and with empty hands, she would perform a slow, deliberate motion, as if pulling thread from the twilight air and weaving it into the fabric of the dusk. A curious young boy from the building, named Sam, often watched her from the street below. One day, he gathered his courage and knocked on her door. "What are you making?" he asked, when she opened it. She smiled, lines crinkling around eyes that held a deep, quiet light. "Come and see." He entered. The apartment was sparse, but immaculately clean. There were no looms, no yarn, no finished tapestries. "But, where is your work?" Sam asked. Elara gestured to the window. "It is everywhere. I weave forgiveness into the arguments that drift up from the street. I weave patience into the heart of the frustrated shopkeeper below. I weave a thread of courage for the young student afraid of her exam tomorrow. I weave remembrance for the old man who feels alone." Sam was bewildered. "But that's not real weaving. You're just moving your hands." "Is a prayer just words?" she asked softly. "Is a kind thought just a flicker in the brain?" "Every intention, Sam, is a thread. Angry thoughts weave tangles. Fearful thoughts weave cages. But thoughts of compassion, of peace, of forgiveness, these weave a net of safety that cradles the world, though no one sees it." She invited him to sit with her that evening. "Do not try to see the threads," she instructed. "Just feel the intention. Think of someone you love, and wish them well. Feel that wish as a gentle warmth in your chest. Now, imagine releasing that warmth into the air, like a golden thread." Sam closed his eyes. He thought of his mother, tired from work. He felt a surge of love, and imagined it as a soft, glowing light leaving his heart. He did the same for his friend who had been sad. When he opened his eyes, the world outside the window looked no different. But he felt different. Lighter. As if a weight he hadn't known he was carrying had been gently removed. He visited Elara often after that. He never saw a physical tapestry, but he began to notice changes, small, subtle ones. The perpetually angry neighbor gave him a grudging nod. The stray cats in the alley seemed less skittish. He felt a strange, quiet connection to the people in his building, as if they were all part of a silent, humming web. Elara passed away peacefully one winter. At her funeral, only a handful of people came. Sam was there, now a young man. As people shared memories, a remarkable pattern emerged. The shopkeeper spoke of a day when overwhelming calm had stopped him from making a terrible decision. The student, now a teacher, spoke of feeling an inexplicable boost of confidence before a life-changing test. The old man told of a night when a profound sense of being loved had washed over him, easing his loneliness. No one connected these moments to the quiet woman in the top-floor apartment. No one, except Sam. He looked around at the small crowd, at the invisible web of kindness and peace that connected them all, woven over years by empty hands and a full heart. Buddhism teaches us of pratyaya samutpada, interdependent origination. Nothing exists in isolation. Every thought, word, and intention is a thread in the vast tapestry of life. The weaver of invisible threads reminds us that our most powerful work is often unseen. The kindness we send silently, the forgiveness we whisper in our hearts, the peace we cultivate within, these are not minor, private things. They are the very threads that mend the tears in the world's fabric. Your mind is a loom. What are you weaving today? On the edge of a wild, ancient forest stood a simple gate. It marked the entrance to the path leading to the monastery of the Silent Peak. The gate had no lock, no latch, not even a rope to hold it closed. It swung freely on its hinges, day and night, in storm and sun. Travelers would approach it with caution. "Why is it open?" they would murmur. "Aren't they afraid? What if dangerous animals enter? What if thieves come?" A novice monk, assigned to sweep the path just inside the gate, would often hear these questions. He too wondered. One day, he asked the abbot, "Master, why do we not secure the gate? It seems a risk." The abbot simply said, "The gate reflects the mind. Come, walk with me." That evening, the abbot and the novice walked through the open gate into the forest. The abbot pointed to a wolf watching them from the trees. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "It can be," said the novice, tensing. "It can be," the abbot agreed. "But is it being dangerous right now? Or is it just being a wolf, living its life?" Our fear of what might be closes an inner gate long before any outer threat arrives. They walked further and came upon a rough-looking man sleeping against a tree, a worn pack beside him. "A thief," whispered the novice. "Perhaps he has stolen in the past," the abbot said. "Or perhaps he is simply a tired traveler." If we approach with the gate of our heart closed, seeing only thief, we create hostility. If we approach with it open, we may see a human being in need of a meal and a kind word. Which response builds more safety in the long run? The abbot led him back to the monastery gate. "A locked gate," he said, "says the world is dangerous, stay out." It creates a fortress mentality. It keeps some things out, yes, but it also traps fear and suspicion inside. An open gate says, we are part of the world. It requires vigilance, not of fear, but of profound awareness. We must be more awake, more compassionate, more discerning. We choose to trust the fundamental goodness of life, even while being wisely aware of its perils. But what if something bad does come through? The novice pressed. The abbot smiled. Then we meet it with the full presence of our practice. A locked gate does not stop a determined enemy. It only gives us a false sense of security. True security lies not in barriers, but in the strength and clarity of the mind behind them. This open gate teaches every visitor, and every monk, that our practice is not about hiding from life, but about engaging with it fully, openly, and without preemptive fear. From that day, the novice saw the gate differently. He saw how travelers, confronted with its openness, often paused and straightened their robes, as if entering a sacred space required them to become their better selves. He saw how the forest animals, not treated as invaders, rarely caused trouble. The monastery was not plundered, it became a revered sanctuary precisely because of its fearless openness. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and aversion, wanting things to be other than they are, and pushing away what we fear. The gate that was always open is a lesson in releasing aversion-born fear. When we lock our hearts preemptively, we wall ourselves off from connection, from help, from the raw, beautiful, and sometimes challenging flow of life. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to keep the gate of the heart open even while feeling it. Can you feel a gate within you that is clenched shut? What might happen if you simply allowed it to swing open, and breathed into the space that creates? There was a powerful, rushing river that carved its way through a canyon. It was famous for its relentless current and its clear, cold water. 2 students from a distant monastery came to learn from it. The first student, Eris, stood on the bank and watched the water thunder past. "I see," he exclaimed. "The teaching is about power and unstoppable force. We must be like the river, breaking through all obstacles, carving our destiny with relentless will." He returned to the monastery energized, preaching a doctrine of fierce determination. The second student, Kale, also stood by the river. But he did not just watch the surface. He waded to a still eddy at the river's edge, behind a large rock. There, the water was calm and deep. He cupped his hands and drank. The water was the same as the raging current, yet here it was still enough to reflect the sky. He sat for hours, listening to the different songs. The roar of the rapid and the whisper of the eddy. When Kale returned, the master asked what he learned. "The river has 2 teachers," Kale said. "The current teaches engagement, the energy to move, to act, to flow forward in life. But the eddy teaches receptivity, the capacity to be still, to absorb, to reflect. One is yang, the other yin. Both are the river. To only have the current is to burn out in relentless striving. To only have the eddy is to stagnate in passive stillness. A true life, like a true river, has both, places of powerful action and pools of deep rest and reflection." The master nodded. Eris learned the letter of the lesson. You learned its spirit. The universe is not a single note, but a harmony. The Buddha taught the middle way, not inert passivity, nor frantic striving, but wise, balanced engagement. We must know when to be the current, moving with purpose through our work and responsibilities. And we must know, with equal importance, when to be the eddy, creating spaces of stillness to drink deeply from the source, to see the sky reflected in our own depths. In our modern world, we often worship only the current, productivity, speed, achievement. We forget the sacred necessity of the eddy. When you feel overwhelmed by the rush, can you find the still pool behind the rock? It is not a retreat from life, but the very source that allows you to re-enter the current with clarity and grace. Your being needs both the flow and the stillness. Honor them equally. I remember, early in my training, being assigned to polish the ancient stone floors of the main hall. It was a meditative practice, done on hands and knees with a soft cloth and a bowl of water. I was determined to be the best floor polisher the temple had ever seen. I poured my entire will into it, scrubbing with intense focus, chasing every speck of dust. My teacher would walk by, saying nothing. After a week, my body ached, my mind was frayed, and the floor, though clean, had a streaked, strained look. My teacher finally knelt beside me. He dipped his cloth lightly in the water, wrung it out with a gentle, unhurried motion, and placed it on the stone. Then, he simply moved his arm in a wide, slow, circular sweep. There was no force. It looked like a caress. He did this for a few minutes, then moved on. The patch he had polished glowed with a soft, deep luster that my frantic scrubbing could never achieve. "You are fighting the floor," he said softly. "You are trying to impose your shine upon it. You must invite the stone's own shine to emerge. It is already there. Your effort should be a partnership, not a conquest." That lesson went far beyond floors. It was about my meditation, my studies, my interactions. I was trying to force enlightenment, force understanding, force kindness. I was all current, no eddy. Learning to soften my effort, to engage with a receptive, allowing quality, that was when true progress began. The shine was always there within me, waiting to be invited, not extracted. People spoke of Mount Serene with awe. It stood alone on a vast plain, its peak forever hidden in clouds. It was seen as the ultimate symbol of achievement, of enlightenment. A solitary, majestic climb to a distant, exalted height. Pilgrims would arrive, look up at its intimidating slope, and feel a mixture of longing and despair. So high. So far. Could I ever? One such pilgrim, a woman named Anya, had traveled for years. She stood at the base, her spirit weary. An old hermit lived in a hut there, tending a small fire. Seeing her despair, he offered her tea. "I will never reach the top," Anya confessed, tears in her eyes. "I am not strong enough, not pure enough." The hermit sipped his tea. "Who told you the top is the goal?" "Everyone," she said. "The peak is enlightenment. The peak is peace." The hermit pointed not up, but down at the ground beneath their feet. "What do you feel?" "The earth," she said, confused. "Is it solid?" "Yes." "Is it supporting you?" "Yes." "That is the mountain," the hermit said. Anya looked at him, baffled. "You are standing on it," he continued. "You imagine the mountain as there, somewhere else to be reached. You see only the slope leading away from you. But the mountain is also here, in this very ground. The peak is not separate from the base. They are one entity. The valley between mountains is not empty space, it is the presence of the mountain's embrace. You seek a distant summit, while ignoring the profound, supportive reality of the mountain that already holds you now." He guided her to a stream that flowed from the mountain's side. "This water comes from the peak's melted snows. You can drink the peak here, at the base. Its essence is already flowing to you." Anya's understanding began to shift. She had been straining toward a future ideal, disparaging her present moment as not there yet. But the hermit was showing her that the qualities she sought, stability, peace, unwavering presence, were not exclusive to a far-off summit. They were the very nature of the ground of being, if she would only recognize it. She stayed at the base, not as a failure, but as a student of the mountain as a whole. She learned its rhythms in the foothills, the morning mist, the steadfast rocks, the resilient moss. She found a peace there that was deep and nourishing. One day, looking up, she realized she no longer felt the desperate pull to the peak. She felt complete where she was. And in that moment of complete acceptance, the clouds around the peak parted briefly, and she saw it, not as a distant goal, but as a beautiful part of the same entity that supported her. She was, and had always been, part of the mountain. In Buddhism, we speak of shunyata, often translated as emptiness. It does not mean nothingness, but the lack of separate, independent existence. The peak and the valley are not two. Enlightenment and samsara are not two. They inter are. We suffer when we create a separation between where we are and where we think we should be. This story teaches non-duality. The peace you seek is not a distant peak to be climbed through brutal effort. It is the very ground of your present experience, waiting to be felt, to be trusted, to be lived. Stop looking only upward. Feel the mountain beneath your feet. You are already home. In the monastery, there was a cherished ritual, the lighting of the great bronze lantern at dusk. Its glow was a beacon of peace throughout the night. A new novice, Finn, was given the honored duty of lighting it. He took immense pride in this. He would polish the lantern until it shone, prepare the oil with meticulous care, and at the exact moment of sunset, light the wick with a solemn prayer. But Finn became obsessed. He began to worry about the lantern during the day. Was it clean enough? Was there enough oil? What if the wind blew it out? He would constantly check on it, even in the bright afternoon sun. His meditation suffered. His chores were done distractedly. His entire focus was on maintaining that one point of light. The master observed this. One afternoon, he called Finn to the courtyard where the lantern stood, unlit, in the full glare of the sun. "Finn," the master said, "what is the purpose of the lantern?" "To shine in the darkness, master," Finn replied promptly. "Yes," said the master. "And is it dark now?" Finn looked at the bright sky. "No, master." "Then why is your mind fixated on the lantern now? You are carrying the darkness of night into the heart of day. You are lighting a mental lantern of worry when the sun is already flooding the world with light. You are missing this." The master gestured broadly to the sun-drenched courtyard, the blooming flowers, the monks practicing Tai Chi. "The lantern has its time," the master continued. "Its time is night. Its gift is needed then. Right now, the gift is the sun. The gift is this moment, without the shadow of future responsibility. By clinging to your duty for tonight, you are refusing the duty of this moment, which is to be fully alive, fully present now." He handed Finn a watering can. "The flowers need water in the daytime. That is this moment's lantern. Tend to this light." Finn understood. He had been living in a projected future, burdening the present with a concern that belonged to another time. He learned to care for the lantern diligently when it was time, and then to release it, trusting the preparation, and turning his full attention to the demands and gifts of the day. The Buddha taught mindfulness, sati, which is awareness of the present moment. This is not just a meditation technique, it is a way of living. Worry is almost always the act of lighting a lantern in daytime, projecting a potential future darkness onto a present that is still light. It drains the joy and potency from now. Your duty is to be present for what is before you, the conversation, the taste of your food, the feel of the breeze. When night comes, you light the lantern of tomorrow's tasks. But do not let its shadow fall upon your sun. A boy named Leo loved to fly his kite. It was a beautiful, vibrant dragon that soared higher than any other in the village square. But Leo grew envious of the birds. They flew so free, with no string holding them back. If only my kite could be that free, he thought. This string is a limitation. One day, in a moment of defiant inspiration, he took a sharp stone and cut the string. For a glorious moment, the kite surged upward, dancing wildly. Leo cheered. It was free. But then, the wind caught it unpredictably. It lurched, spun, and began to tumble. Without the tether's gentle, guiding tension, it had no stability. It was thrown against a cliff face, ripped and shattered, and then plummeted to the ground, broken beyond repair. Leo sat in the dust, holding the ruined kite, sobbing. An old monk, who had been watching from a bench, came and sat beside him. "You thought the string was a prison," the monk said gently. "But it was a conversation." The kite spoke to the wind through the string. The wind spoke back through the tension in your hands. That tension was not bondage, it was relationship. It was what allowed the kite to ride the wind, not be victim to it. The string was its connection to earth, to purpose, to the hand that loved it. Without that loving tether, it was just debris in the storm. Leo wiped his tears. "I wanted it to be free like a bird." "But birds are not free of connection," the monk said. "They are tethered to the earth by need, for food, for nest, for offspring. They are tethered to the air by the laws of flight. True freedom is not the absence of connection, but finding the right relationship with it." The kite's freedom was in the dance between the pull of the earth and the push of the sky. You severed the dialogue, and in doing so, you ended the dance. In our quest for absolute freedom, we often mistake discipline, commitment, and connection for chains. We want to cut the strings of responsibility, of relationship, of practice. But the Buddha's path, the Eightfold Path, is often called a discipline. It is a tether. It is not meant to restrict, but to provide the stable, compassionate tension that allows us to ride the winds of life, of emotion, of change, of challenge, without being shattered. Our commitments, our vows, our daily practices, our connections to others, these are not limitations. They are the strings that allow us to soar. What tether in your life are you resisting? Could it be the very thing that allows you to fly? In a city of magnificent artists, there was a sculptor named Silas who was tormented by a block of pure white marble. He saw a magnificent angel within it, a vision of grace that haunted his dreams. For years, he worked. He chiseled, he sanded, he polished. But the statue never matched the vision in his mind. An arm was awkward. The face lacked spirit. He would fix one part, only to see a flaw in another. He grew angry, then despondent. The block, which had held such promise, became a symbol of his failure. He finally abandoned his workshop and wandered into the mountains, where he met a hermit living in a cave. He poured out his sorrow. "I can see the perfect angel so clearly," Silas cried. "But my hands cannot release it. The stone defeats me." The hermit handed him a smaller, rough stone from the cave floor. "What do you see in this?" Silas turned it over. "It's just a rock. Ugly, irregular." "Look again," the hermit urged. "Not for what you want to impose, but for what is already there." Frustrated but humored, Silas looked. He let his eyes soften. After a time, he said, "Well, this curve here is smooth, like a resting cheek. This bump could be a shoulder." "Good," said the hermit. "Now, with the gentlest touch of your smallest file, just highlight that smooth curve. Follow its own shape. Don't create a cheek, just reveal the cheek that is already suggested." Silas did so, with a light, curious touch. It felt less like work and more like discovery. He revealed the shoulder. He found a line that suggested a folded wing. He didn't force an angel, he collaborated with the stone to reveal a beautiful, unique form that was sleeping within it, not a celestial angel, but a stone spirit, perfect in its own rustic way. He held the finished small sculpture, a profound peace washing over him. It was not the angel of his dreams, but it was true. It had a life of its own. "Your block of marble," the hermit said, "does not contain your angel. It contains its own true form. You have been at war with the stone, trying to force your dream out of it. You must have a conversation with it. Ask it what it wants to be. Your job is not to create, but to remove what hides the statue that is already, and always has been, complete within." Silas returned to his workshop. He approached the marble not with a master's plan, but with a student's humility. He touched it, felt its grain. He made small, tentative cuts, following the stone's own suggestions. The process became joyful. And from that collaboration emerged a statue of such breathtaking, authentic beauty that it made his original dream seem shallow. It was not an angel from his mind, it was the soul of that particular stone, finally set free. This is the heart of meditation and self-discovery. We approach ourselves like Silas with his angelic ideal. We have a vision of the perfect self, always calm, always kind, always enlightened. We chisel away at ourselves with self-criticism, forced discipline, and harsh judgment, trying to carve out that ideal. We are at war with our own marble. But the Buddhist view is that Buddha nature is already present, complete within us. Our practice is not about creating a new self, but about gently, patiently, removing the obscurations, the attachments, aversions, and ignorance, that hide our already present, authentic nature. We are not becoming something. We are unbecoming everything we are not. Stop sculpting your ideal. Start discovering who, beneath all the added layers, you already are. There was an old astronomer named Orion who dedicated his life to mapping the heavens. One night, he discovered a faint, new cluster of stars, a tiny, delicate constellation no one had recorded. He named it Corona Silenti, the crown of silence. It became his secret treasure, his private piece of the cosmos. As he aged, his eyesight faded. The stars in his beloved Corona Silenti grew dimmer in his vision until one night, he could not find it at all. He panicked. He consulted his charts, his calculations. It had to be there. But to his failing eyes, that patch of sky was just empty blackness. Despair gripped him. He had lost his crown. He stopped going to his observatory. The world felt bleached of magic. His young granddaughter, Lyra, visited him. Seeing his sorrow, she asked what was wrong. He told her of the lost constellation. It was there, he whispered, pointing to a blank spot in the sky. And now it is gone. Lyra, who had sharp young eyes, took his hand. Show me where, grandfather. He guided her trembling finger. She peered up, searching. She saw many stars, but no distinctive crown. Then she did something. She stopped trying to find a crown. She just looked at that part of the sky, letting her vision soften. And she saw it, not as a connected shape, but as a delicate scattering of 5 faint stars in a gentle, uneven circle. It wasn't a grand crown. It was a humble, quiet circlet. I see it, she said softly. She described it to him, the cool blue of one star, the slight flicker of another, the vast, velvet space between them. As she described it, Orion did not see it with his eyes. But he felt it. In his mind, through her words, the constellation blazed back into existence, more beautiful than ever. It was no longer just his secret map point, it was now a shared experience, translated through love. Its meaning transformed from a possession to a connection. He realized he hadn't lost the constellation. He had only lost one way of perceiving it. Its essence was still there, waiting to be known through other means, through memory, through story, through the eyes of another. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent, including our senses and our perceptions. We cling to experiencing the world, beauty, love, pleasure, even our own abilities, in one specific, familiar way. When that way changes, through age, loss, circumstance, we think we have lost the thing itself. We suffer. This story invites us to find the constellation through other faculties. If you can no longer grasp something with your hands, can you know it with your heart? If you can't see it with your eyes, can you feel its presence in the silence? The essence of what we love is often more resilient and multifaceted than our preferred method of holding it. Don't confuse the perception with the thing itself. The crown of silence is always in the sky, even when your eyes can no longer trace its shape. 2 famous painters were commissioned to capture the essence of the Valley of Whispering Pines. The first painter, Alden, was a realist. He set up his easel and for months painted every detail, each needle on the ancient pines, the precise play of light on the stream, the exact shade of the mountain rock at noon. His painting was breathtaking in its accuracy, a mirror of the valley. People said you could almost hear the stream. The second painter, Cora, arrived but did not set up an easel immediately. She walked the valley for weeks. She sat under different trees at different hours. She slept under the stars. She felt the cold of the dawn mist, the scent of damp pine, the loneliness of the hawk's cry. Then, she painted for a single day. Her canvas showed bold, sweeping strokes of green and gray, a suggestive swirl for the stream, a textured smudge for the distant mountain. It was not a literal representation. But those who looked at it didn't just see a valley, they felt a profound stillness, a touch of melancholy, a whisper of timelessness. Some reported feeling a chill, or smelling pine, when they stood before it. When the 2 paintings were displayed, the debate raged. which was the true painting of the valley. A wise curator hung them side by side and wrote a single line on a plaque below, one painted what the eyes see. The other painted what the valley is. Both are true. One is fact. The other is truth. Alden had captured the suchness of the valley's forms. Cora had captured the suchness of its essence. One appealed to the intellect, the other to the soul. In our practice, we can sometimes become like Alden, focused on the precise, literal details of technique. Am I sitting right? Is my breath correct? Did I meditate for 20.3 minutes? This is important groundwork. But there is also Cora's way, the direct, experiential immersion in the feeling of being alive, in the essence of awareness itself. Buddhism values both the precise teachings, the Dharma, and the direct, intuitive experience, Kensho, Satori. Do not get so caught in painting the perfect detail of your practice that you forget to feel the valley it inhabits. Your meditation is not just about the posture of the body, but about the landscape of the being. Between two villages, separated by a deep, narrow gorge, there was an old rope bridge. It was the only way across. The unique property of this bridge was its echo. A word spoken in the middle would bounce back and forth between the gorge walls 7 times before fading. Over generations, the villages used the bridge not just for travel, but for communication. They developed a tradition. If you had a grievance, you would go to the center of the bridge and speak it aloud. You had to listen to your own complaint echo 7 times. More often than not, by the time the last echo faded, the speaker's anger would have dissipated, softened by the repetitive hearing of their own harsh words. They would often then call out an apology or a kinder word, whose echoes would also dance through the gorge. A man named Kale from the East Village was furious with his neighbor, Brahm, from the West Village over a stolen chicken. He stormed onto the bridge, stood in the center, and shouted, "Brahm is a thief and a liar." The gorge caught his words, "Thief and a liar, thief and a liar, liar, liar." It came back to him, each time a bit weaker, but the accusation hung in the air, sounding pettier with each repetition. By the 7th echo, Kale just felt tired. The words he had hurled like stones now sounded hollow. He took a breath. Then he called out, but he did return the chicken. The echo returned, "Return the chicken, chicken, chicken." This echo felt lighter, humorous even. Then Brahm's voice came from the other side. "And I am sorry I took your best one, Kale." The apology echoed too. Soon, both men were laughing at the chorus of their own conflict bouncing between the walls. The argument was over, dissolved by the mirror of the echo. A wise woman from the villages said, "The bridge does not solve problems. It gives your words back to you, so you can hear them as the universe hears them. Often, that is enough." This is a profound practice of mindful speech. The Buddha emphasized right speech, speech that is true, kind, necessary. Before you speak, especially in conflict, imagine your words crossing the bridge of echoes. Listen to them echo in your own mind. How do they sound? Do they build a bridge or deepen a gorge? Our words create our world. The echo reminds us that what we send out, we must first hear ourselves. Let your inner echo be your guide to wisdom. In a city of logic and efficiency, there was a small, overlooked archive called the Repository of Felt Experience. Its librarian, Elara, was a tiny, ancient woman. The archive didn't hold books of facts, but rather, containers of feelings. Crystal vials that held the shimmer of a specific joy, small lead boxes that contained the weight of a particular grief, silk pouches that hummed with forgotten anxieties. People had forgotten how to visit. They dismissed feelings as data errors to be corrected. But Alara kept the archive, dusting the containers, knowing each one's story. One day, a severely logical engineer named Leo stormed in, furious. "A nonsensical sadness has corrupted my system," he declared. "I have optimized my life. My metrics are perfect. Yet this malfunction persists. I demand to delete it." Alara nodded. "First, we must catalog it. Describe the feeling." "It's a tightness in the chest. A sense of missing something. It activates most strongly when I hear the whistle of the evening train." Alara walked down an aisle and returned with a small, cool, blue glass vial. "Place your hand on it." He did. He felt a gentle pull, and the malfunction drained from his chest into the vial, which now glowed with a soft, blue-silver light. He felt immediate relief. "Excellent. Delete it now." "We don't delete," Alara said. "We archive. This feeling now has a name, longing for departure, unlived. It belonged to a version of you that once dreamed of taking that evening train to unknown places. You chose stability, a good choice. But that other self, that dream, still needed to be acknowledged. By trying to delete it, you gave it power. By acknowledging and shelving it, you have made peace. You can visit it if you wish, but it no longer runs your system." Leo was stunned. He looked at the vial, no longer a threat, but a piece of his own history, gently preserved. He began visiting the archive regularly, not to delete, but to understand the cryptic, beautiful, sometimes painful code of his own heart. He learned that joy vials could be borrowed to brighten a dark day, and that sharing a grief box with another often halved its weight. In our meditation and mindfulness practice, we often make the engineer's mistake. We see difficult emotions as malfunctions, to be eliminated through force of will. We resist them, fight them, try to delete them. Buddhism teaches us to turn toward our experience with acceptance, not aversion. The librarian teaches us to shelve our feelings. To acknowledge them, name them, give them space without letting them define us. This is sadness. This is anxiety. By giving them a respectful place in the archive of our awareness, we drain their chaotic power. They become part of our story, not our master. What feeling are you trying to delete that simply wants to be acknowledged and shelved? Master Potter Hamza was famous for a single vase, his masterpiece. It was a vessel of such perfect proportions, such exquisite glaze, that it seemed to hold light within its curves. It sat in the center of his studio on a special pedestal. For Hamza, it was not just a vase, it was the proof of his skill, his identity as an artist. One day, a playful gust of wind blew through the open window, caught a loose cloth, and sent it fluttering into the pedestal. The vase wobbled, teetered for a heart-stopping moment, and then fell to the stone floor. The sound of its shattering was the sound of Hamza's heart breaking. He stood frozen, then sank to his knees amidst the fragments. Days passed. He couldn't work. He simply stared at the shards. His apprentice, worried, gathered every piece she could find into a box and placed it beside his wheel. Weeks later, in a state of numb despair, Hamza opened the box. Instead of seeing tragedy, his artist's eye began to see something new. The fragments had interesting shapes. The break lines created intriguing patterns. A crazy idea formed. He took the shards and began to fit them back together, but not to recreate the old vase. He used a special adhesive mixed with gold dust. He pieced the fragments into an entirely new form, a sculptural tree, its trunk and branches made of the vase's pieces, the gold-filled cracks gleaming like rivers of light. Where there had been one perfect, closed form, now there was an open, complex, radiant sculpture. It was more beautiful, more moving, than the original vase had ever been. When people saw it, they were amazed. "It's more than it was before," they said. Hamza understood. His attachment to the vase as a perfect, finished object had blinded him to the potential within its breaking. The break was not an end, but a transformation. The gold-filled cracks became the most beautiful part. They told the story of resilience, of embracing imperfection. The Buddha's core teaching is the truth of dukkha. Often translated as suffering, but closer to unsatisfactoriness or the inherent fragility of conditioned things. Things break. Relationships end. Plans fail. We suffer not just from the breaking, but from our rigid attachment to the unbroken form. The potter's vase teaches kintsugi on a spiritual level. Your cracks, your failures, your heartbreaks, they are not shameful. They are the places where the gold of your wisdom, your compassion, your resilience can shine through. Don't waste time mourning the shattered perfect vase. Gather the pieces with kindness, and see what new, more radiant form they are calling you to create. In a town obsessed with punctuality, the master clockmaker, Alistair, built a clock that was the pinnacle of accuracy. It not only told the time but accounted for leap seconds, solar fluctuations, and tidal pulls. It was a marvel. Yet, Alistair himself was perpetually anxious, a prisoner of the very seconds he measured. His health declined. On his deathbed, his students gathered. "Master," one asked, "what is the most important secret of time?" Alistair, his breath shallow, pointed to the window where a shaft of afternoon sun illuminated a patch of floor. Dust motes danced in the light. "See that?" he whispered. "That is the only time that is real. The past is a memory, a story. The future is a worry. That sunlight, now, that dust mote, now, your breath, now, that is the timeless hour. My whole life, I built cages for moments, and forgot to live in the one that was always here." He closed his eyes, a smile on his face, and his breathing slowed into silence. In that final moment, he was not in the past or future. He was fully in the timeless hour. The students kept the great clock running, but they also built a simple sundial in the garden below, inscribed with his words, "Here, in the moving shadow, is the timeless hour." Mindfulness is the practice of anchoring ourselves in the timeless hour, the present moment. The Buddha taught that clinging to the past, regret, nostalgia, and craving for the future, anxiety, expectation, are the twin roots of suffering. The present moment is the only point where we are actually alive, where we can actually touch peace. You can spend a lifetime, like Alistair, measuring time perfectly and completely missing it. Or you can step into the sunlight, watch the dust dance, and be free. A baker named Greta had a sourdough starter passed down for 5 generations. It was her most prized possession, the mother. She fed it religiously at the same time, with the same flour, the same water. The bread it made was good, consistent, reliable. One night, a stray cat knocked the jar off the shelf. It shattered, and the precious starter spilled onto the floor. Greta was devastated. It was gone. The lineage was broken. In grief, she swept up the mess, shards of glass, flour, the discarded starter, and threw it all into her compost bin at the edge of the garden. Weeks later, she went to turn the compost. To her astonishment, a wild, vigorous fermentation was happening. Natural yeasts from the apple peels, the grape skins, the very air had mingled with the remnants of her old starter, creating something new, bubbling with incredible life. On a whim, she took a scoop of this compost ferment, fed it, and baked with it. The bread that emerged was unlike any she had ever made. It had a depth of flavor, a complexity, a wild, tangy soul that her pristine, protected starter had never achieved. It was unpredictable, sometimes more sour, sometimes more mild, but always vibrantly alive. People flocked for this compost loaf. It had character. It told a story of catastrophe and rebirth. Greta realized her treasure had been a museum piece, preserved but not truly alive. Its breaking and mingling with the wild, impure world had given it new life, a deeper wisdom. She now maintained her new starter not in a sealed jar in a controlled kitchen, but in a clay crock that breathed, and she sometimes fed it with grains from different fields, welcoming the unknown. Our spiritual practice can become like Greta's pristine starter. We try to protect it from contamination, from difficult emotions, from worldly engagement, from anything impure. We seek a controlled, consistent, predictable state of mind. But sometimes, the breaking of our carefully maintained practice, through loss, crisis, or simply life's chaos, is what allows it to mingle with the wild yeast of raw experience. What emerges can be messier, less predictable, but infinitely more alive, resilient, and deeply flavorful. Don't fear the breaking and the mingling. The compost loaf of your spirit may be your truest offering. A merchant brought a magnificent mirror to a bustling marketplace. It was framed in silver, and its reflection was flawless. He charged a coin for anyone to look into it. People lined up. They saw themselves reflected with perfect clarity, and they were pleased. They admired their clothes, adjusted their hair, puffed out their chests. A Zen monk, passing through, paid his coin and looked. He stood for a long time, silent. The merchant grew impatient. Well, do you not see how perfect it is? The monk replied, I see a perfect reflection of a face, of robes, of the marketplace behind me. It shows everything that is temporary. But I was hoping to see the one thing that does not change, that is not reflected. The merchant scoffed. That is not the purpose of a mirror. Its purpose is to show what is there. Exactly, the monk said with a gentle bow. And that is its limitation. It is useful for arranging the temporary. But do not mistake the reflection for the source of the light that makes seeing possible. He walked to a still rain barrel at the edge of the market, its water dark and murky. He peered in. His reflection was distorted, vague. This, he said to the puzzled onlookers, is a better mirror for the seeker. It does not flatter form. It reminds me that the true self is not captured in any reflection, clear or murky. The true self is the awareness that sees the reflection. We spend our lives looking into mirrors, the mirrors of other people's opinions, social media, achievements, possessions, trying to see and affirm a solid, pleasing self. Buddhism teaches anatta, or non-self. This isn't a negation of your personality, but a pointing to the fact that what you truly are is not the temporary, reflected image, your thoughts, your body, your story, but the boundless, aware space in which all those reflections appear and disappear. The next time you look in a mirror, see if you can notice not just the face, but the awareness that is seeing it. That is you. A meticulous gardener named Ben saw his mission as the eradication of weeds. He spent hours each day on his knees, pulling, digging, ensuring only his chosen flowers grew. It was a constant battle. The more he weeded, the more resilient certain weeds seemed to become. He was exhausted and his garden felt like a war zone. A visiting botanist saw his struggle. "What do you call a weed?" she asked. "Anything I didn't plant," Ben said. "Ah," she said. "The dandelion you rip out feeds bees with its early pollen. The clover you despise fixes nitrogen in your soil, feeding your roses. That ugly vine provides shelter for ladybugs that eat your aphids. You are fighting your allies." Ben was skeptical but desperate. He agreed to an experiment. For one season, he would only remove truly invasive, strangling plants. He would let the others be, simply cutting them back if they overshadowed his flowers, but not ripping them out. It was hard at first. The garden looked messy to his ordered eye. But then he noticed changes. His roses were healthier, their leaves greener. He saw more bees and butterflies. The soil felt richer. The garden began to feel less like a curated display and more like a living, breathing ecosystem. Lush, abundant, and vibrantly alive. It required less work and produced more beauty. He realized his idea of perfect had been sterile. True vitality included diversity, even what he had once called weeds. Our minds are like Ben's garden. We label thoughts as good, meditative, peaceful, and bad, angry, anxious, weedy. We exhaust ourselves trying to rip out the bad thoughts. But what if some of those weeds serve a purpose? Anxiety can signal a need for preparation. Anger can highlight a boundary that has been crossed. Sadness can connect us to our depth. The practice is not ruthless weeding, but wise gardening. We don't let one thought vine strangle the whole garden, but we also don't declare war on our own inner ecosystem. We observe, we allow, we gently prune when necessary, and we trust in the overall intelligence of the system to find balance. This is the essence of acceptance in mindfulness. In an age of exploring uncharted lands, a famed cartographer named Silas grew bored of mapping coastlines. He turned his skills inward, attempting to map his own mind. He created elaborate charts: here be dragons of anger, the swamp of melancholy, the peak of ephemeral joy. He plotted the routes of his thoughts, the tides of his emotions. But the map was never right. The dragons would migrate. The swamp would dry up. The peak would crumble. Frustrated, He made new maps every day, each more detailed, each more obsolete by sunset. He finally collapsed in exhaustion, his study littered with thousands of contradictory maps. In his despair, he took a blank parchment and simply wrote in the center, "You are here." Then he drew a circle around it. He looked at this simple drawing. For the first time, it was accurate. It was always true. It didn't describe the territory, which was always changing, but it accurately pointed to the experiencer of the territory, the awareness that was present for the dragons, the swamp, the peak. That awareness was the only constant. The constantly changing landscape was the territory. Trying to fix it on a static map was the source of his suffering. He burned all his old maps. He kept only the one that said, "You are here." His true exploration began only when he stopped trying to chart the weather and instead learned to be the sky in which all weather arose and passed. In meditation, we often try to be cartographers. We want a map to enlightenment, a fixed description of stages, a diagnosis of our mental states. While guidance is useful, clinging to the map is the problem. The mind is not a static territory. It is a living, flowing process. The only true, constant point is the aware presence. The "you are here." Allowing yourself to be that open, unchanging awareness, and letting the dragons and swamps and peaks move through you without needing to permanently map them, that is freedom. A great temple had a bell so sacred it was said its sound could purify karma. Pilgrims traveled for months to hear it rung at the new year. The ringing was a profound, physical vibration that shook the body. One year, a deaf man made the pilgrimage. People pitied him. "What a shame," they whispered. "He will make the journey but miss the blessing." The deaf man arrived and stood before the great bell as the master striker prepared. As the mallet swung and struck, the crowd felt the mighty boom in their bones. They closed their eyes in rapture. The deaf man felt nothing in his ears. But he felt the stone beneath his feet tremble. He saw the air visibly shiver. He saw the faces of the people around him transform with awe. He felt the collective intake of breath, the unified release. He saw the vibration in the petals of a nearby flower. He felt a corresponding boom not in his ears, but in the center of his chest, a deep, silent resonance of shared reverence. When it was over, the pilgrims discussed the glorious sound. The deaf man was quiet. The abbot approached him. "You could not hear. Did you receive anything?" The man placed his hand over his heart. "I heard it here," he said. "I heard the sound of devotion moving through stone, through air, through people. I heard the silence around the sound, which was even deeper. My hearing was not through a narrow channel, but with my whole body, my whole being. It was the purest sound I have ever known." The abbot bowed deeply. "You have heard the true bell. The rest of us heard only a wave in the air. You perceived the ocean. We often seek spiritual experience in specific, sensational ways. A particular vision, a blissful feeling, a profound thought. We think if we don't hear the bell in the conventional way, we have missed out. But the Buddha's awakening was not a fireworks display for the senses. It was a profound, silent understanding that permeated his entire being. The deepest truths often resonate not in the ears, but in the heart, not as a spectacular event, but as a quiet, unwavering knowing that changes everything. Don't measure your practice by the spectacular sensations. Measure it by the silent resonance in your core. An old Cherokee tale is told of a grandfather teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside me," he says. "It is a terrible fight between two wolves. One is evil, he is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. He continues, the other is good, he is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." The grandson thinks about it and asks, which wolf will win? The old man simply replies, the one you feed. This is wise. But a Zen master, hearing this, added a third wolf. The student asked, "A third wolf, master? What is it?" The master said, "It is the wolf that watches the other two. It does not fight. It does not choose. It simply observes with infinite patience and compassion. It sees the angry wolf arise and says, 'Ah, there is anger.' It sees the kind wolf arise and says, 'Ah, there is kindness.' It feeds neither. It is just awareness." "But then who wins?" the student asked, confused. The master smiled. "When you identify with the watching wolf, the fight becomes a dance. The wolves are just energies passing through the field of your awareness. You are not the fighters. You are the spacious, compassionate field in which they appear. Feed the watching wolf with your attention, and you are free." This is the pivot from psychology to spirituality. We often get caught in the battle of good versus bad within us, trying to feed one and starve the other. This is exhausting. Mindfulness offers the third option, the observing awareness. You are not your anger. You are not your kindness. You are the awareness that knows both. Rest in that awareness. From that space, choices arise not from a battle, but from wisdom. The lighthouse keeper, Elias, prided himself on his beacon. Through storm and fog, he kept the light burning, guiding ships to safety. His identity was the light. One catastrophic night, a lightning strike fried the electrical system. The great lamp went dark. Elias scrambled with tools, but the damage was beyond his repair. He stood in the pitch-black tower, the storm raging outside, and felt utter despair. "I have failed. Ships will crash. I am nothing without my light." He did the only thing left. He lit a single, small candle and placed it in the highest window. It was a pathetic glow against the howling dark, barely visible. Defeated, he sat in the darkness, waiting for the sounds of disaster. At dawn, exhausted, he heard a knock. Opening the tower door, he found the captain of a large freighter. "We saw your light," the captain exclaimed, grasping his hand. In the worst of the storm, when everything was black, we saw that tiny, steady point of candlelight. It was just enough to orient us, to let us know where the rocks were. You saved us. Elias was stunned. He had thought his value was in the powerful, sweeping beam. But in its absence, his humble, unwavering candle, a light of sheer presence when all else failed, had been enough. We often think our worth, our spiritual light, must be big, brilliant, and constantly impressive. We feel like failures when our inner lighthouse seems to go dark, when we feel depressed, lost, or devoid of inspiration. But sometimes, the most powerful light is not the blazing sun, but the single, stubborn candle of simple presence lit in the heart of our personal darkness. It says, "I am here. I may not have answers, but I am not leaving." That tiny, honest light is often the truest guide, for yourself and for others. Don't despise your candle because it is not a spotlight. A young woodcarver, Kaito, sought to carve a statue of Kannon, the goddess of compassion. He had 2 knives, one was sharp, honed to a razor's edge, perfect for defining details, the curve of a lip, the fold of a robe. The other was a broader, softer blade for shaping and smoothing. Kaito became enamored with the sharp knife. He loved the clarity of its cut, the precision. He used it for everything. He tried to smooth with it, to shape with it. The result was a statue full of exquisite, intricate details, but the overall form was jagged, harsh, covered in tiny nicks and gouges. The goddess looked tense, pained. His master took the sharp knife from him and handed him the soft blade. "Use this for a week. Only this." Frustrated, Kaito tried. The soft blade couldn't create fine details. It forced him to focus on the overall flow, the gentle curves, the spirit of the form. He had to use a softer touch, more patience. Slowly, the jaggedness smoothed away. The statue began to emanate a feeling of peace. After a week, the master returned the sharp knife. "Now," he said, "use both. Let the soft blade create the compassionate form. Let the sharp blade, with great care, add only the details that enhance that compassion, a gentle smile, a merciful glance. The sharp knife serves the soft form. It does not dominate it." Kaito understood. The sharp knife was his critical intellect, his discernment, his will. The soft blade was his heart, his empathy, his allowing nature. He had been leading with criticism and will, which created a fractured, harsh result. He needed to lead with compassionate shaping, and then use discernment sparingly, in service to that compassion. In our inner work, we often lead with the sharp knife of self-criticism, analysis, and forceful will. We try to carve ourselves into an ideal with harsh precision. This creates inner tension and suffering. The Buddha's path balances wisdom, the sharp knife, and compassion, the soft blade. We must lead with the soft blade of self-acceptance, of gentle allowing. Then, from that space of kindness, we can apply the sharp blade of wise discernment, not to attack ourselves, but to make precise, careful adjustments that support our overall well-being. Lead with the heart. Let the mind be its careful servant. People loved the ancient maple in the monastery courtyard most in autumn, when it was a blaze of crimson and gold, and in spring, when it burst with tender green leaves. In summer, it was a canopy of shade. But in winter, it stood bare, black branches stark against the gray sky. Many found it ugly, a symbol of death and absence. A new novice, assigned to sweep beneath it, complained to the master. "It is so depressing in winter. Nothing to see. Just emptiness." The master said, "Come with me at dawn tomorrow." In the cold morning light, they stood under the tree. "Look up," the master instructed. "What do you see?" "Branches. Just empty branches." Look closer, the master urged. See how each branch reaches uniquely into the sky. See the intricate pattern they make against the dawn, like a sacred map. See the buds, tiny and hard, sleeping at every joint, holding the promise of spring. This is the tree's deepest teaching. In its fullness, it shows us abundance. In its bareness, it shows us its true architecture, its essence, its patient, silent faith. We fear emptiness, but emptiness is not nothing. It is potential. It is honesty. It is the clear seeing of structure, of what remains when the decoration falls away. He continued, your mind has seasons. Do not fear the winter of your spirit, the times of low energy, of quiet, of seeming emptiness. In those times, you see the architecture of your soul, stripped bare of leaves. You see your essential branches reaching for the sky. You see the dormant buds of potential. This is not a time for despair. It is a time for deep, quiet faith. The leaves will return. But first, honor the beauty of the bare tree. We are conditioned to seek constant bloom, constant productivity, constant positive feeling. We pathologize our natural winters, periods of sadness, rest, or inner emptiness. Buddhism teaches us to embrace the totality of the cycle. The bare tree is not failing to be a tree, it is being a tree in its winter aspect. Your winter mind is not failing to be mindful, it is showing you the profound, quiet depth of your being. Rest in the bare branches. Trust the architecture. The leaves of joy will return in their own season. In the royal court, the greatest musicians competed for the king's favor. There was a lute player whose notes could make birds weep, a flutist who could mimic the wind, a drummer who could stir the heart to war. Then came a musician who brought no instrument. He simply bowed before the king and sat on the floor, closing his eyes. The court tittered. Minutes passed in utter silence. The king grew impatient. Well, play. The musician opened his eyes. I am playing, Your Majesty. I am playing the silence between the notes of your court. I am playing the space in which all sound exists. Listen. The irritable king, for lack of anything else to do, listened. He heard the fading echo of the last musician's note. He heard the rustle of silk. He heard his own breath. He heard the distant cry of a hawk outside. In that attentive listening, the ordinary sounds of the court arranged themselves into a strange, profound symphony. The silence wasn't empty, it was a vibrant, pregnant field from which all individual sounds arose. The king felt a peace deeper than any melody had ever given him. He awarded the silent musician the highest honor. You have not played music, the king said. You have taught us to hear it everywhere. Our meditation is often like this. We seek special experiences, special sounds, special states of consciousness. We think peace is a particular note to be played. But the silent musician reminds us that peace is the listening itself. It is the awareness that holds all experience. The thoughts, the sounds, the feelings, without judgment. The most profound music is not in the individual notes, but in the silent, aware space that allows them to be. You are not trying to create a special state. You are learning to be the silent musician, listening to the symphony of this moment, exactly as it is. A learned professor traveled to a remote monastery to learn from a famed Zen master. Over tea, the professor began expounding on his vast knowledge of philosophy, science, and comparative religion. He spoke for an hour, barely pausing. The master listened patiently, saying nothing, and simply kept pouring tea into the professor's cup. The professor, engrossed in his lecture, didn't notice at first. But then he saw the tea overflowing from his cup, spilling across the table, dripping onto the floor. "Master," he cried. "Stop. The cup is full. It can hold no more." The master set down the teapot. "Exactly," he said gently. "Like this cup, your mind is full of your own ideas, your knowledge, your opinions. How can I show you Zen, which is the taste of emptiness, if there is no space for it to enter? You must first empty your cup." This classic story holds a deeper layer. Later, the professor, humbled, asked, "How do I empty my cup?" The master picked up the now empty cup. He turned it upside down. He shook it. Not a drop fell out. "Is it empty?" he asked. "Yes," said the professor. The master smiled. "It is full of air. It is always full of something. Empty does not mean vacant of all substance. It means open, receptive, not clinging to any particular content. Your mind will always have thoughts, like this cup holds air. The practice is not to create a vacuum, but to stop clinging to the thoughts as solid, permanent truths. Let them come and go like breath in the cup. That openness, that non-clinging, is the emptiness that can receive wisdom. We often misunderstand emptiness or a quiet mind as a blank, thoughtless state. That striving becomes another form of grasping. True emptiness is spacious awareness. It's the cup that can hold tea, thoughts, feelings, experiences, without being permanently stained or defined by it. It can be washed and be ready for the next infusion. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Instead, create space around them. Be the cup, not the tea. In a monastery famous for its cherry orchard, there was a strict path monks were to walk during meditation, a straight, raked gravel path. The rule was to walk with eyes lowered, focused on the path, step by step. One spring, during a fierce wind, cherry blossoms fell like pink snow, covering the perfectly raked path. A young monk, Kenji, was walking. He saw the blossoms covering the prescribed path. A dilemma: should he sweep them aside to follow the exact path? Should he step on them? They were so beautiful, so transient. He paused, conflicted. The master, observing, came and stood beside him. "What is the purpose of the path, Kenji?" "To focus the mind, master. To practice mindful walking." "And are you focused?" the master asked. "No, master. I am distracted by the blossoms and the rule." The master then stepped off the raked gravel and walked directly through the blanket of fallen blossoms. He made no attempt to follow the straight line. His feet crunched softly on petals. "The path," he said, "is not the gravel. The path is your attention. Can you walk with full attention on the blossoms? Can you feel each delicate crush under your sandal? Can you see their color, smell their faint scent, without clinging to their beauty or lamenting their fall? That is mindful walking. The form, the straight gravel, is a tool for beginners. Do not become a slave to the tool. When life covers your planned path with blossoms, walk through the blossoms. The true path is your awake presence, wherever your feet happen to be. We can become rigid in our spiritual practices, worshipping the form, the 20-minute sit, the specific mantra, the perfect posture, and missing the spirit, which is awakened awareness itself. Life will constantly throw blossoms, and storms, on our planned path. The practice is not to cling to the plan, but to bring mindful, compassionate awareness to whatever is under our feet right now. The true path is not a line on the ground. It is the quality of your attention as you move through the unpredictable, beautiful, messy reality of your life. And so, dear listener, our time of stories draws to a close. But the listening, the true listening, is just beginning. These tales are not containers of truth to be stored on a shelf. They are fingers pointing at the moon. The moon is your own direct experience, your own heart, your own awareness in this very moment. We have wandered through gardens and crossed bridges, met weavers and potters, watched kites and lanterns. We have seen that wisdom is not a complicated philosophy to be memorized, but a simple, lived reality to be remembered. It is in the allowing, not the forcing. In the releasing, not the grasping. In the quiet witnessing, not the frantic doing. The core of the Buddha's teaching is astonishingly simple, though endlessly deep. There is suffering. There is a cause of suffering, clinging and aversion. There is an end to suffering. There is a path to that end, the noble eightfold path of ethical living, mental discipline, and wisdom. Everything you have heard tonight echoes this. The cloud that refused to rain clung to its form. The bowl that never filled was full of ego. The rock on the path was met with aversion. The echo in the mountain returned what was sent. The tea without sugar invited us to taste reality directly, without the sweetener of our preferences. You have your own stories unfolding every day. You are the gardener, the weaver, the potter, the walker on the path. See if you can bring the spirit of these tales into the next hour, the next day. When you feel tension, remember the gardener and try unwatching. When you are caught in worry, remember the lantern in daytime. When you face a broken piece of your life, remember the potter and look for the gold in the cracks. When a harsh word rises in your throat, let it cross the bridge of echoes first. When you feel lost, remember you are already standing on the mountain. This is not a practice of perfection. It is a practice of gentle return. You will forget. You will grasp. You will avert. And then, you remember again. You soften. You turn toward. Each time you do, you wear a deeper path of peace in your neural landscape. You carry a silent musician within you, a librarian of feelings, a cartographer whose only true map says, you are here. Trust that. The world outside will continue with its noise. But you now know of a sacred space that travels with you, the space of your own aware, compassionate presence. Visit it often. It requires no pilgrimage. Just a breath. Just a pause. Just a letting go. Thank you for sharing this timeless journey. Thank you for your listening heart. May you be well. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. May you walk gently on this earth, a blessing to yourself and to all beings you meet. Good night.